Welcome back to AFGE's Inside Government, available on demand at InsideGovernmentRadio.com. Joined again by our good friend Bob Weiner. Bob was a senior staffer in the Clinton White House, as well as working for a number of members of Congress and committees on Capitol Hill. Bob, welcome back to the program.
It's a pleasure, Jason, and thanks so much for the message you bring to not only government workers, but to the population as a whole about the facts of what's going on.
Bob, I want to get into your recent op-ed in the Des Moines Register titled The Myth of Postal Service's Finances. Tell us about that and what you were aiming to achieve with the op-ed.
Well, Jason, since I left the White House, we've done 160 op-eds in top papers, and we try to make a message about what we can do progressively for American workers and for the people in this very difficult climate of Republicans trying to privatize and kill all government programs and make profit for the highest and the wealthiest. In the case of the Postal Service, there's been a proposal to cut back 3,700 post offices. There are 600,000 people that work for the post office, and it's a myth to say that the post office is in desperate financial straits. The myth is that it's got an enormous financial problem, when in fact it's because there is a 75-year prepay requirement for pensions, unlike all other government agencies that have 20 to 30 years. And that's risking some between $50 and $75 billion downstream that the post office is supposedly having to make up. That's all President Bush, who signed the bill, and Darrell Issa, the chairman of the House Government Operations Committee, who refuses to do a fixed bill that's signed by 229 members of Congress to equalize the post office's prepay requirement with all other agencies. So you have, and then there's another bill by that's a bill by Congressman Lynch of Massachusetts, 229 sponsors. Maxine Waters has another similar bill that has 19 more sponsors. So you have over half the House ready to go, bipartisan, but the Republican leadership, as in so many things, House and Senate, in the Senate by filibuster, in the House by simply blocking things, stopping progress that could actually help 600,000 people and that work for the post office, 32,000 post offices, and stop 4,000 post office closures. That's what's at stake here. So my goal, since I left the White House, is to do things that can help. I thought that by writing this piece in a major paper, the Des Moines Register, and I invite our listeners to go to it at the Des Moines Register site or go to my website, weinerpublic.com, WEINER public.com, and then write all the Congress people you can think and all the senators you can think and say, equalize the prepay requirement for the post office to all other agencies and adopt the Lynch and Waters bills to fix the problem.
What is the need here, the rationale behind prepaying this pension fund so far in advance?
Well, I spoke with the communications director of the American Postal Workers Union, and she said, this is Sally Davidow, a direct quote, that ISA is blocking it because he wants to privatize everything and destroy union jobs. There's such an anti-union attitude among the Republican leadership of the Congress that they will do everything to kill every union and to privatize everything, to put it into the private sector. The problem is that the post office is actually in the Constitution. So, you know, by the way, Republicans are supposedly, pro-Constitution. The Constitution empowers Congress to establish post offices, not to destroy them, to establish them. And by the way, and post roads. You know, the transportation bill that's up that they also are blocking is another issue that would, as President Obama says, 1 million jobs are at stake. We wouldn't be even having the 8% unemployment if it wasn't for the Republicans blocking the jobs bills that Obama has put before Congress. And, Jason, you know, just to diverge from our op-ed and maybe expand from it, I've never seen a Congress like this. I've never seen a Congress that does nothing but block good things and not give you some bipartisan support to represent the people in the government, not your party. I worked for some great people. I worked for Congressman Claude Pepper, Ed Koch, John Conyers, Charlie Rangel, although I hide a little bit from Rangel because of his not paying his taxes on his condos and having been censured. I would certainly, if I were working for him, have advised him to pay the darn taxes, sell the condos, and get yourself out of this before it's a huge problem. But that's a different issue. So, but I've worked with some great people. Senator Ted Kennedy I worked for 2 years. So these are, you've had the Civil Rights Bill, the Social Security Act, Medicare. They've all had from 60 to 90 minority co-sponsors, even when they're saying this is socialism, it's big government. They use the same buzzwords that there is now. But because of the compromises and because when you really put your heart at it and when you really consider the thing, you're actually helping people by these bills. This Congress, these Republicans won't do it. They are so, to this day, only devoted to one thing, and that is defeating President Obama and making his life hell.
Bob, as we look at this issue related to the post office and at the congressional level, discussions, debates, what have you, about the role of the post office, do you see that as one discussion in a larger argument about public services, the government, the role of government, the services that it provides, and this sort of argument there within?
I do. I think it's an attitude against public employees that, again, Republicans, but Americans as a whole are starting to buy into. And that's tragic, Jason, because government workers, I've been one. I take it personally. They really contribute of their lives to the people and to the government. They've given up working in the private sector to work for the public sector. Hey, my brother made a lot of money in the private sector. That was his choice. I told him, you get your kicks out of making money. I get mine out of actually accomplishing something in government for people, and my ego is driven by what I can get done. And that's still the case to this day when I write these op-eds and I do these radio and TV shows. If I can move the dial a little bit, then I'm really happy. When I spoke to Pelosi and she said, they've lost on Social Security right after we put an op-ed in that Social Security is actually solvent for 30 years and it's paid for by what Americans put into it. Same with Medicare. Medicare and Social Security together have stopped 75% of seniors' poverty. It used to be 75% of seniors were in poverty. We used to literally have them eating out of garbage pails and dog food. I mean, I was the chief of staff of the House Aging Committee under Claude Pepper. Those were very real before Franklin Roosevelt, the New Deal, and then Johnson, the Fair Deal, and Social Security and Medicare. Those have been the most successful social programs ever. We did something, and the Republicans want to kill it, and Pelosi was so proud that she stopped the Republicans from privatizing and killing it. Well, that's back, so we got to do it again. That's what public servants do. They do things for people. They're honest. They recognize that Social Security and Medicare keep people out of poverty. They recognize that the safety net of food stamps, there's another one that they want to kill by 25%. I mean, those are food for families on the table. That's what food stamps are. They help people still work. It's like John Conyers, the dean of the Congressional Black Caucus, said to me, since when was stopping people from being hungry and in poverty and not having jobs, when were those bad things? And that's what the safety net and our programs do. So to me, if you're a government servant and you're working on those things, you don't deserve to be damned by people just because they didn't choose to go into public service and they want to represent a constituency that's cynical. Government is us. It's people that want to be part of government. We elect our own leaders. So why are we chastising the people who are in those positions?
You're listening to AFGE's Inside Government, and we're here with Bob Weiner, former senior staffer in the Clinton White House. Bob, obviously at this point in the summer, June 2012, we are in full campaign mode. What are you hoping to accomplish between now and Election Day in November?
I don't mind if politics is the motive for getting something done. I think, for example, what President Obama did, because he had been blasted for not doing it, to get something done on immigration that had 55 votes in the Senate but was filibustered out. He finally did something. Now the Republicans are saying, how could you do that and use your power? And then they want to say, but wait, you had the power for 2 years with Congresses and you didn't use it. So they want to have it both ways. So when he does something, he's damned. When he doesn't do something, he's damned. So the bottom line is if politics is the motive for getting something positive done, then so be it, and I'm not against that. Right now, hanging is the doubling of student loan interest rates. They have got to do something on that by July 1st. The Republicans say you got to pay for it. First, they proposed out of health care, out of women's health care. Now they're proposing taking it out of pensions. So what kind of deal is that? So there's got to be a compromise. If there's no compromise, it means the Republicans are playing politics. The Democrats, if they want to play politics and tell the students that they're doing something for them to not double their interest rate on their student loans, I think that's terrific. But something needs to be done. And if politics is the motive, I'm all for it.
Bob, how do we get to a compromise? What's it going to take to get both parties to the table make concessions, and get something done on.
Well, I've seen when blame is the motive. And if blame against the Republicans for coming up with cockamamie solutions that are really stealing from other people, robbing Peter to pay Paul, then it won't fly, and blame can cause a solution. Harry Reid has proposed some solutions on the student loan bill that are equitable, that, you know, you take a little bit off the top of the millionaires' tax breaks. Romney, by the way, is proposing another $250,000 tax break for millionaires. It's not as though that's even maintaining the Bush plan. He's proposing more. So Reid is trying to do a little bit off of that, and if the Republicans are willing to compromise. The problem, Jason, is what I'm seeing is Romney right now is saying he still wouldn't take the 10-to-1 deal that was offered in the debate. Simpson Bowles was 3-to-1 in terms of revenue, tax breaks versus revenues. And they want to say, on the one hand, take Simpson Bowles, but on the other hand, we won't take 10-to-1. So it's hard. How do you relate to these people? The only way that it happens is under pressure. If they start seeing that there will be a massive swing against them by students, by people who see that they're only for tax breaks for the rich, that they won't solve anything, that obstructionism really is a motive to vote against them in the congressional elections, they could get scared enough to actually want to accomplish a few things before the election.
Bob, obviously it's a contentious time in Washington, as we have noted in some of these discussions here with you earlier. In your time in government, working on Capitol Hill, working in the White House, can you remember a time it being so contentious?
No, Jason, it started with Newt Gingrich as Speaker. Not only the contract on America, but the fact that he, with delay, the hammer killer delay, would not allow Republicans to vote in any way, not 1, 2, or 3 votes for the Democrats on anything. Suddenly there was new rules, as Bill Maher says. The new rule was you're not allowed to vote for the Democrats at all, no matter how much you'd want to, as a matter of bipartisan spirit and compromise. I've never seen anything like it. No, not when Bob Michael was the minority leader. It was cooperation, working together. So, you know, on the health bill, Jason, people forget, and on the stimulus also. On the health bill, there were 160 tax breaks for small business. On the stimulus, it was 40% tax breaks, which wouldn't have been there if Obama hadn't made an effort to compromise with the Republicans, because that took away from the need to put money into jobs and to actually stimulate the economy, which is what actually works. If you look at the statistics, it's 5.5% GDP growth under Democratic presidents who've had tax breaks for middle and lower and push jobs and people programs versus 1.5% GDP growth since Hoover, when they tried to only do tax breaks and push them out for the wealthy and do those kinds of tax breaks and then push the money out into defense, where it's sort of like vacuum spending on wars like Afghanistan and Iraq. It's a night and day difference. So I've never seen anything like it in terms of the Congress. In my years, 26 years of government service, I've never seen anything like it where it's totally a partisan clash.
Bob Weiner, former senior staffer in the Clinton White House and a proud public servant. Bob, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Jason. Great to be with you.